There's a moment at every funeral when the room goes quiet, when the pastor stops speaking, when the choir finishes singing, when everyone just breathes. It's supposed to be a moment of peace, a moment to say goodbye. But at my husband's funeral, that moment of silence was shattered by a scream. Not mine. I was sitting in the front row, dressed in black, holding a tissue I had soaked through twice already. I was the grieving widow. I was the woman who had spent 22 years building a life with Vincent Davis. I was the mother of his 3 children. I was supposed to be the only woman crying over his casket, but I wasn't. When I turned around to see who had screamed, I saw a woman I had never seen before. She was standing in the middle of the aisle, wearing a black dress, clutching a photograph of my husband against her chest. "That's my husband," she screamed. "That's my Vincent." For a moment, I thought she was confused. I thought maybe she was at the wrong funeral, that she had wandered into the wrong church, that she had mistaken my Vincent for someone else. But then another woman stood up. She was sitting near the back, a woman I had also never seen. She looked at the woman in the aisle, then at me, then at the casket. "What do you mean, your husband?" This second woman said, her voice shaking. "Vincent Davis is my husband. We've been married for 15 years. The church went completely silent. 200 people, not a single breath. And I sat there, in the front row, realizing that my entire life, my entire 22-year marriage, had been a lie. That funeral was 3 years ago. Today I'm sitting in my living room with a glass of wine, finally ready to tell this story. It took me a long time to get here. There were months when I couldn't even say his name. There were nights when I woke up screaming, convinced I was still living in the nightmare. There were moments when I questioned everything I thought I knew about love, about trust, about myself. But I survived. More than that, I found something I never expected to find. I found sisters. Darlene, the woman who screamed in the aisle, she lives in Chicago now. We talk every week. Keisha, the woman from the back of the church, she's in Houston. We have a group chat that never stops buzzing. The 3 of us, the 3 women who were all married to the same man at the same time, we didn't become enemies. We became family. Because here's what Vincent didn't count on when he built his empire of lies. He underestimated us. He thought we would turn on each other. He thought we would fight over his memory, his money, his legacy. He thought his secret would die with him. He was wrong. We found each other. We helped each other heal. And together, we uncovered the full truth of who Vincent Davis really was. Before I tell you how 3 strangers became sisters, let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you about the man I thought I married, the life I thought I had, and the moment everything fell apart. Drop a comment below. Have you ever discovered that someone you loved wasn't who they said they were? This story is for you. I met Vincent Davis in the summer of 1999. I was 22 years old, fresh out of college, working my first real job at a marketing firm in Atlanta. He walked into my office one Tuesday afternoon, tall and confident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He was there to discuss an advertising campaign for his company, Davis Distribution, a logistics business he said he had built from the ground up. I was assigned to his account, and from the moment we started talking, I felt something I had never felt before. It wasn't just attraction, though he was certainly handsome. It was the way he looked at me, like I was the only person in the room. Like everything I said was the most interesting thing he had ever heard. Like he saw something special in me that no one else had ever noticed. Our first meeting was supposed to be 30 minutes. It lasted 2 hours. He asked me to dinner that night. I said yes, without even thinking about it. Looking back now, I realize how calculated he was from the very beginning. He knew exactly what to say, exactly how to make me feel. He was a master manipulator, and I was his willing student. But at 22, I didn't see manipulation. I saw romance. I saw passion. I saw the man I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And for 22 years, that's exactly what I thought I was doing. Vincent and I got married in 2001. In a beautiful ceremony at my family's church. 300 guests, a live band, a 3-tier cake that my mother spent weeks designing. It was the happiest day of my life. We bought a house in the suburbs, a beautiful 4-bedroom with a big backyard and a swimming pool. I left my job to focus on starting a family, something Vincent said he wanted more than anything. Our first child, Vincent Jr., was born in 2003. Then came our daughter Aaliyah in 2005 and our youngest son Marcus in 2008. 3 beautiful children. A beautiful home. A beautiful life. At least that's what it looked like from the outside. The truth was more complicated. Vincent traveled constantly for work. He was always on a plane, always in another city, always closing a deal or meeting a client or handling some emergency at one of his warehouses. "The business doesn't run itself," he would say when I complained about his absences. "I'm doing this for us, Monica, for our family, for our future." And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He always came home with gifts, jewelry, clothes, vacations. He always had money in the bank. He always seemed to be working so hard to give us the life we deserved. What I didn't know was that while he was supposedly working, he was actually living 2 other lives, in 2 other cities, with 2 other women, building 2 other families. The business trips to Chicago? He had a wife there, a woman named Darlene who thought she was the only Mrs. Davis, a woman who had given him 2 children of her own. The conferences in Houston, another wife, Keisha, a teacher who had fallen in love with the same charming businessman who had swept me off my feet. She had 2 kids with him too. For over a decade, Vincent Davis maintained 3 separate marriages, 3 separate families, in 3 separate cities. He had 7 children across 3 households. He had 3 women who all thought they were his one and only. And none of us had any idea. If you're wondering how this is possible, let me tell you. Vincent was a professional. He didn't just lie, he created entire systems to maintain his lies. He had 3 different cell phones, each registered to a different name. He had separate email accounts, separate bank accounts, separate credit cards. He had a calendar system that would have impressed a Fortune 500 CEO, meticulously tracking which wife expected him where and when. He knew exactly how much attention each of us needed. He knew when to call, when to send flowers, when to show up with surprise tickets to a show. He studied us like we were projects, learned our weaknesses, and exploited them perfectly. With me, he played the ambitious provider. He knew I valued stability, security, a man who could take care of his family. So that's who he was, always working, always providing, always making sure the bills were paid and the kids had everything they needed. I later learned that with Darlene, he was the romantic. She was a nurse who worked long hours, and Vincent positioned himself as her escape from stress. He sent her love letters. Actual handwritten letters, can you imagine? He showed up at the hospital with flowers. He made her feel like the most cherished woman in the world. And with Keisha, he was the family man. She was a teacher who valued education and community. So Vincent volunteered at her school, attended parent-teacher conferences, coached their son's basketball team. He made her believe he was the devoted father she had always dreamed of. 3 different personas, 3 different performances, all of them convincing, all of them lies. For years, I never suspected a thing. I missed him when he was gone, of course. I wished he could be home more often, but I trusted him. I believed every word he said. I never once thought to check his phone, to question his stories, to dig deeper into where he actually was, because why would I? He was my husband, the man I had pledged my life to, the father of my children. You don't investigate someone you love. You trust them, and that trust nearly destroyed me. Vincent died on a Thursday in October, 3 years ago. I got the call at 7 in the morning. He was supposed to be in Chicago, a business trip, he said. Some problem with a warehouse that needed his personal attention. I was making breakfast for the kids when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice, professional but gentle. "Mrs. Davis? This is Mercy Hospital in Chicago. I'm calling about your husband, Vincent Davis. My heart stopped. I knew before she even said the words. There was an accident. His car was hit by a truck on the highway. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Davis. He didn't survive. I don't remember dropping the phone. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember my children running into the kitchen, finding their mother collapsed on the floor. I just remember darkness, absolute, complete darkness. The next few days were a blur. My brother Marcus flew in from California. My mother moved into the house to help with the kids. Friends brought food, sent flowers, offered condolences. Everyone kept telling me how sorry they were, how much Vincent loved me, how lucky I had been to have such a devoted husband. If only they knew. I planned the funeral for the following Saturday. I chose his favorite suit, his favorite hymns, his favorite Bible verses. I wrote a eulogy that praised his dedication to his family, his work ethic, his loving heart. I had no idea that 200 miles away, another woman was doing the exact same thing. And 800 miles away, a third woman was making her own arrangements to say goodbye to the man she thought she had married. The funeral was at First Baptist Church in Atlanta, the same church where Vincent and I had gotten married 22 years earlier. The pews were packed. Co-workers, neighbors, family members, everyone who had ever known Vincent came to pay their respects. I sat in the front row with my 3 children. Vincent Jr. was 18, trying so hard to be strong for his younger siblings. Aaliyah was 16, crying silently into a tissue. Marcus was 13, staring at his father's casket like he couldn't quite believe it was real. The service was beautiful. Pastor Williams spoke about Vincent's generosity, his faith, his commitment to his family. The choir sang Amazing Grace. My brother delivered a reading from Corinthians. Everything was exactly as Vincent would have wanted. And then it was time for the viewing, the moment when friends and family walk past the casket to say their final goodbyes. The line moved slowly, colleagues shaking their heads sadly, neighbors wiping tears, cousins hugging each other, a steady stream of mourners paying their respects to a man they thought they knew. I wasn't really watching the line. I was staring at the flowers, trying to hold myself together, counting down the minutes until this nightmare would be over and I could go home and collapse. But then I heard a gasp, and then a murmur, and then a scream. "That's my husband!" I turned around so fast I nearly fell off the pew. A woman was standing in the middle of the aisle, about halfway down the church. She was maybe 40 years old, wearing a black dress and pearls, and she was pointing at Vincent's casket with a shaking hand. "That's Vincent. That's my Vincent. What is he doing here? What is going on?" At first, no one knew what to do. People looked at each other, confused. Some thought she might be mentally ill or confused or at the wrong funeral somehow. But I looked at her face. I looked at her eyes. And I saw genuine grief, genuine shock, the same devastation I had felt when I got that phone call. This wasn't a stranger who had wandered into the wrong church. This was a woman who knew my husband. Before I could say anything, before I could even process what was happening, another voice cut through the murmurs. Wait a minute." A second woman was standing up near the back of the church. She was younger than the first woman, maybe 35, and she was clutching a photograph in her hands. She started walking down the aisle toward the casket, her heels clicking against the marble floor in the sudden silence. "Vincent Davis?" she said, her voice trembling. Is this a funeral for Vincent Davis of Davis Distribution?" I found my voice. It came out as a whisper, but in the silent church, everyone could hear me. "Yes, this is my husband's funeral. Vincent Davis. We've been married for 22 years. The first woman, the one who had screamed, made a choking sound. 22 years? That's impossible. I've been married to Vincent Davis for 15 years. We live in Chicago. We have 2 children together." The second woman stopped walking. She looked at me. She looked at the first woman. She looked at the casket. 15 years? She said softly. "I've been married to him for 12. We live in Houston. We have 2 children." For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. 200 people sat frozen, watching 3 women realize that their entire lives had been built on lies. my son Vincent Jr., grabbed my arm. "Mom, what's going on? Who are these women?" I couldn't answer him. I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything except stare at these two strangers, these two women who had apparently shared my husband for over a decade, and feel my entire world crumbling beneath my feet. Pastor Williams tried to restore order. "Ladies, perhaps we should discuss this privately." But the first woman wasn't having it. She marched up to the front of the church, right up to the casket, and looked down at Vincent's body. "You son of a bitch," she said quietly. "You absolute son of a bitch." And then she started to laugh, or maybe cry. It was hard to tell. It was the sound of a woman whose heart was breaking and reforming all at once. The funeral was over, not because the service had ended, but because there was no way to continue. Pastor Williams tried his best, but the church was in chaos. People were whispering, pointing, some even recording on their phones. My mother ushered my children out through a side door. My brother Marcus stayed with me, his hand on my shoulder, as the two other women approached the front of the church. We stood there, the three of us, in front of Vincent's casket. 3 wives, 3 strangers, 3 women who had loved the same man without knowing the others existed. The first woman spoke first. Her name was Darlene, she said. Darlene Patterson. She had kept her maiden name, which Vincent had encouraged because he said it was progressive. Now we knew the real reason. 15 years, she said, her voice hollow. I gave him 15 years, 2 children. I thought he was traveling for work every other week. Chicago to Atlanta, he said. Important clients, big deals. The second woman introduced herself as Keisha. Keisha Robinson, also kept her maiden name, also at Vincent's suggestion. 12 years, Keisha whispered. He told me he had to travel to Chicago and Atlanta for the business. He was gone half the month, but when he was home, she wiped her eyes. When he was home, he was perfect. The perfect husband, the perfect father. I felt sick, literally, physically sick. My legs were shaking so badly I had to sit down in the front pew. 22 years, I heard myself say. I was his first wife. We got married in this church. I had his first child. Darlene sat down next to me, then Keisha. The 3 of us, sitting in the front row of the church where I had married Vincent, staring at his casket. How did we not know? Darlene asked. How is this possible? I shook my head. I don't know. I don't understand any of this. Keisha was looking at her phone. We need to talk. Really talk. Not here, not like this. But we need to understand what happened. We need to know the truth. She was right. The funeral was ruined, but our lives were just beginning to unravel. There were so many questions, so many lies to untangle, so much pain to process. I gave them my number. They gave me theirs. We agreed to meet the next day, away from the chaos, away from the judgment. And as I walked out of that church, leaving my husband's body behind, I realized that the man I had buried wasn't the man I had married. He was a stranger, and I was about to find out just how strange his life had really been. We met the next day at a coffee shop near the airport. Neutral territory, we agreed. Somewhere none of us had memories with Vincent. I arrived first. I had barely slept the night before. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the faces of those 2 women. I heard the scream in the church. I felt my world collapsing over and over again. Darlene arrived next. She looked as exhausted as I felt, with dark circles under her eyes and a coffee cup already in her hand. She sat across from me without saying anything. What do you say to the woman who shares your husband? Keisha came last. She had been crying recently. Her eyes were puffy, but she was trying to hold it together. She sat down, looked at both of us, and took a deep breath. Okay, she said. Let's figure this out. For the next 3 hours, we talked. We compared notes. We put together the timeline of Vincent's deception. It started with me in 1999. Vincent and I dated for 2 years before getting married in 2001. For the first few years, he traveled occasionally, normal business trips, nothing suspicious. But in 2004, things changed. The business started expanding, Vincent said. New warehouses in Chicago. He had to travel there more often, sometimes twice a month. That's when he met Darlene. She was a nurse at a hospital in Chicago. Vincent had a minor accident. He said he slipped on some ice, and Darlene treated him in the ER. He asked her to coffee, then dinner, then… He told me he had never been married, Darlene said bitterly. He said he was a widower, that his wife had died of cancer 5 years earlier, that he had been too heartbroken to date until he met me. My jaw dropped. He told you I was dead? Darlene nodded. He said he still wore his wedding ring in her memory, that he couldn't bear to take it off. I thought it was romantic. I felt like I was going to vomit. He had used our wedding ring, as a prop in his lies. The timeline got worse. So much worse. Darlene and Vincent got married in 2006, a small ceremony in Chicago, she said. Just family and a few friends, none of whom apparently had any connection to his Atlanta life. He said his family was all gone, Darlene explained. Parents dead, no siblings, no one to invite. So we kept it small. Meanwhile, I was in Atlanta, pregnant with our daughter Aaliyah. Vincent had missed her birth. He said he was stuck in a meeting in Chicago and couldn't get a flight in time. I was devastated. He sent 3 dozen roses and promised he would make it up to me. Now I knew where he actually was, celebrating his first anniversary with his second wife. Then there was Keisha. She met Vincent in 2009 at a business conference in Houston. By then, he had perfected his technique. Same story, widower, dead wife, too heartbroken to move on until he met her. He was so convincing, Keisha said, shaking her head. He cried when he talked about his late wife. He said I was the first woman who made him feel alive again. Keisha and Vincent got married in 2010, another small ceremony, another isolated event with no crossover to his other lives. By 2010, Vincent Davis had 3 wives in 3 cities. He had children with all of us. He was maintaining 3 separate households, 3 separate identities, 3 separate lies, and he kept it up for over a decade. How? I kept asking. How did he have the time, the money, the energy? Darlene had started doing research. She pulled out a folder of documents she had collected. The business, she said. Davis Distribution. It's bigger than any of us knew, much bigger. He wasn't just a regional logistics company. He had contracts with major corporations across the country. The company was worth millions. Millions. While he was telling me we needed to be careful with money, while I was clipping coupons and shopping sales, Vincent was sitting on a fortune. He used the business to move money around, Darlene continued. Separate accounts for each family, separate credit cards, separate everything. On paper, it just looked like business expenses. I thought about all the years I had managed our household budget, worrying about bills, trying to stretch every dollar. And the whole time, Vincent was funding 2 other families, 2 other lives, without breaking a sweat. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was financial. It was systematic. It was calculated. The hardest part wasn't learning about the wives. It was thinking about the children. Between the 3 of us, Vincent had 7 children. 7 kids who thought they had a father who loved them. 7 kids who were now going to learn that their dad was a liar and a fraud. My 3 were the oldest. Vincent Jr. was 18, old enough to understand the full weight of what had happened. When I told him the truth, the whole truth, he didn't say anything for a long time. Then he went to his room and didn't come out for 2 days. Aaliyah cried for hours, not just about losing her father, but about losing the idea of who he was. Was any of it real? She kept asking. Did he ever really love us? I didn't know how to answer that. I still don't. Marcus, my youngest, was 13. He was angry more than sad. He threw things. He screamed. He said he wished Vincent had never been his father. And those were just my children. Darlene's 2 kids, a son and a daughter, 15 and 12, were going through the same thing in Chicago. Keisha's 2, both boys, 11 and 8, were devastated in Houston. 7 children, 7 broken hearts. All because one man couldn't be satisfied with a single life. Darlene looked at me and Keisha, her eyes wet with tears. Our kids are siblings, she said quietly. They don't know it yet, but they're brothers and sisters. I hadn't thought about it that way. But she was right. My children had 4 half-siblings they had never met. 4 brothers and sisters scattered across the country, all grieving the same man, all learning the same terrible truth. They should meet, Keisha said. Someday, when they're ready. They didn't choose this. They shouldn't suffer for his sins. We all agreed. Whatever happened between us, whatever anger and betrayal we were processing, the children were innocent. They deserved to know their siblings. They deserved something good to come out of this nightmare. A week after the funeral, I got a call from a lawyer. Vincent's lawyer, apparently. A man named Harold Green, who said he needed to meet with me urgently to discuss the estate. I agreed to meet him at his office. What I didn't expect was to find Darlene and Keisha already sitting in the waiting room. "He called you too?" I asked. They nodded. We were all nervous. What else could possibly go wrong? Mr. Green brought us into his conference room and explained the situation. Vincent had a will, a very carefully constructed will that revealed just how deliberate his double life had been. The company, Davis Distribution, was worth approximately $12 million. Additionally, Vincent had life insurance policies, investments, and property totaling another $4 million, $16 million. Our husband, our shared husband, had been worth $16 million. Mr. Davis left specific instructions, Harold Green said, looking uncomfortable. He divided his estate into 3 equal portions, 1/3 to Mrs. Monica Davis, 1/3 to Mrs. Darlene Davis, 1/3 to Mrs. Keisha Davis. He knew. The bastard knew that when he died, we would find out about each other. He had planned for it. He had written it into his will. "There's also a letter," Mr. Green continued. He handed each of us an envelope with our name on it. I opened mine with shaking hands. "My dearest Monica," it began. "If you're reading this, then you know the truth. I know you must hate me now, and I don't blame you. But I want you to know that my love for you was real. Every moment we shared was real. I just had a heart big enough to love more than one woman. Please don't hate Darlene and Keisha. They're victims too. Take care of our children. And try, if you can, to remember me as the man who loved you, not the man who lied to you. Forever yours, Vincent." I crumpled the letter in my fist. A heart big enough to love more than one woman? That wasn't love. That was ego. That was greed. That was a man who wanted everything without consequences. But he was wrong about one thing. He thought we would fight. He thought we would hate each other. Instead, we found something else, something he never expected. After the lawyers' meeting, the 3 of us went to a bar, not to celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. But we needed to process what had just happened. We needed to figure out what came next. We sat in a corner booth, 3 women who should have been enemies, sharing a bottle of wine and trying to make sense of our lives. Darlene spoke first. "We have a choice," she said. "We can fight over the money. We can sue each other. We can spend the next 10 years in court, destroying what's left of our families." That's probably what Vincent expected. She took a sip of wine. "Or we can choose something different. We can acknowledge that we're all victims here. We can split the money fairly, take care of our children, and maybe, I don't know, maybe help each other heal." Keisha nodded slowly. "I spent the last week hating you both. I'm not going to lie. I looked at your pictures and I thought, how could they not know? How could they let this happen? But then I realized I didn't know either. I was just as fooled as you were. I thought about all the anger I had been carrying, the rage at Vincent, which was justified, but also the rage at these women, which wasn't. They hadn't stolen my husband. He had given himself away, over and over again, without any of us knowing. "I don't want to fight," I said finally. "I'm too tired to fight. And honestly, you're the only 2 people in the world who understand what I'm going through. My friends try to help, but they don't get it. How could they? This doesn't happen to normal people." Darlene laughed bitterly. "We're not normal anymore. We're the 3 wives of Vincent Davis. We're going to be a story people tell at dinner parties. Did you hear about those women in Atlanta? Their husband had 3 families. So let's control the narrative, Keisha said. Let's decide what this story means. It doesn't have to be a tragedy. It doesn't have to be about him. What else could it be about? I asked. Keisha smiled. It was the first real smile I had seen from her. Us. It could be about us. 3 women who found each other in the worst possible circumstances and decided to be sisters instead of enemies. Over the next few months, something strange happened. Something beautiful. Darlene, Keisha, and I became friends. Real friends. The kind of friends who call each other at 2 in the morning when you can't sleep. The kind who show up without being asked. The kind who know your pain because they're living it too. We started a group chat called the Wives Club. At first it was practical stuff, legal questions, financial decisions, coordinating the children's therapy appointments. But gradually it became something more. We shared everything, our fears, our anger, our moments of unexpected grief. Darlene would text at midnight, "I miss him. I hate that I miss him." And Keisha and I would respond, "We know, we miss him too. We hate him and we miss him." It sounds crazy, right? Missing the man who destroyed our lives. But that's the thing about love. It doesn't just disappear because someone doesn't deserve it. The heart doesn't work that way. What helped was realizing that we weren't alone in that confusion. Every emotion I felt, Darlene and Keisha felt too. Every stage of grief, every moment of rage, every unexpected memory that brought tears. They understood. They were living it alongside me. 6 months after the funeral, we decided to meet in person again. Not in a lawyer's office or a coffee shop. At Keisha's house in Houston. A real visit, a chance to see each other's lives. I flew to Houston on a Friday afternoon. Darlene arrived from Chicago that evening. And for the first time, the 3 of us sat in a living room together, drinking wine, looking at old photos, trying to piece together the puzzle of Vincent's life. We compared photographs, holidays, birthdays, random Tuesday afternoons. In my pictures, Vincent was at my son's soccer game. In Darlene's pictures, taken the same weekend, Vincent was at a symphony in Chicago. In Keisha's, he was coaching basketball practice in Houston. The logistics of his lives were staggering. He must have been exhausted, I thought, keeping track of 3 lives, 3 schedules, 3 sets of expectations. Maybe that's what gave him the heart attack. Maybe his body just couldn't sustain the deception anymore. Good, I thought. And then I felt guilty for thinking it. And then I didn't. The hardest part, and the most beautiful part, was introducing the children. It took almost a year before we felt they were ready. A year of therapy, a year of processing, a year of learning to separate their feelings about Vincent from their feelings about each other. We arranged the meeting at a resort in Florida. Neutral territory. Somewhere with a beach, a pool, activities to break the tension. 7 kids ranging from 8 to 19 years old. 7 strangers who shared DNA but not memories. 7 young people whose lives had been upended by the same man's lies. I was terrified. What if they hated each other? What if they blamed each other? What if this whole experiment made everything worse? But I had underestimated them. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for. Vincent Jr., my oldest, took the lead. He walked up to Darlene's son, Marcus. Yes, she named her son Marcus too, another detail that made me sick, and shook his hand. "This isn't your fault," my son said. "It's not any of our faults. We're family, whether we like it or not, so we might as well get to know each other." By the end of the weekend, they were playing in the pool together. They were staying up late, sharing stories about their dad, the good stories, the funny stories, the memories they wanted to keep. They were exchanging phone numbers and Instagram handles. They weren't just siblings on paper anymore. They were becoming real brothers and sisters. Watching them laugh together, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Vincent had tried to keep us all separate, all isolated, all ignorant. But in death, he had accidentally given us something he never intended. He had given us a family. I want to be clear, finding sisterhood didn't erase the pain. It didn't make the betrayal okay. It didn't fix everything overnight. There were days when I was so angry I could barely function, days when I screamed at Vincent's photograph, Days when I threw his belongings in the trash, then dug them back out, then threw them away again. Therapy helped. My therapist, Dr. Reeves, specialized in betrayal trauma. She told me that what I was experiencing was normal, that discovering a spouse's double life is one of the most devastating forms of betrayal a person can endure. You're not just grieving a death, she explained. You're grieving an entire reality. The life you thought you had doesn't exist. The person you thought you knew was a fiction. You have to mourn both the man and the marriage. She was right. I had lost Vincent twice, once to death and once to the truth. Both losses were devastating in their own way. The hardest part was the memories. 22 years of moments that I thought were real. Our wedding, the birth of our children, holidays, anniversaries, random Sunday mornings making pancakes. Were any of those moments genuine, or was he always thinking about his other families, always calculating, always lying? I asked Darlene once if she felt the same way. She did. So did Keisha. He was a good actor, Keisha said bitterly. That's all he was, an actor playing 3 different roles. But was any of it real? I asked. Did he love us at all? Darlene shrugged. I think he loved himself, and we were mirrors that reflected back the man he wanted to be. He didn't love us for who we were. He loved how we made him feel. That felt true. It didn't make me feel better, exactly, but it helped me understand. Vincent wasn't capable of real love. He was only capable of performance. People ask me if I've forgiven Vincent. It's a complicated question. Do I understand why he did what he did? No, I don't think I ever will. There's no explanation that justifies deceiving 3 women for over a decade, bringing 7 children into a web of lies. Have I stopped hating him? Mostly. The rage has faded to something quieter. Disappointment, maybe. Pity, even. Imagine being so broken inside that you need 3 families to feel complete. Imagine being so terrified of intimacy that you can only give pieces of yourself to each person. Vincent was a coward. He wanted love without vulnerability. He wanted connection without commitment. He wanted everything without risking anything. In the end, he lost it all anyway. He died alone, in his car, on a highway in Chicago. No wife beside him, no children holding his hand. Just a man whose lies finally caught up with him. Have I forgiven him? I've released him. I've stopped letting his betrayal define my life. I've taken back the power he stole from me. But forgiveness? That implies that what he did is forgivable. And I'm not sure it is. What I have forgiven is myself, for not seeing the signs, for trusting too completely, for believing that love meant never questioning, never doubting, never digging deeper. I know now that trust has to be earned, not given freely. I know that love means paying attention, staying curious, keeping your eyes open. I know that the people who love you should make you feel safe, not confused. These are lessons I wish I had learned earlier, but at least I learned them. Today, 3 years after that funeral, my life looks completely different. I sold the house in Atlanta. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I bought a smaller place, a townhouse that's just mine. I decorated it the way I wanted. Bright colors, weird art, things Vincent would have hated. I went back to work, marketing, where I started. I'm good at it and I like it, and it gives me something to focus on besides the past. My children are healing. Vincent Jr. is in college now, studying business, ironically enough. He says he wants to learn how his father built his empire and then do it honestly. Aaliyah is finishing high school, planning to study psychology. She wants to help people process trauma. Marcus is in therapy, still angry sometimes, but getting better. And then there are my sisters. Darlene moved to Atlanta last year. We live 10 minutes apart now. We have dinner every Sunday. She's become one of my closest friends, which is insane when you think about how we met. Keisha is still in Houston, but we visit each other constantly. Our kids spend school breaks together. They fight like real siblings now, over video games, over who ate the last slice of pizza, over who gets the good bedroom. Normal family stuff. The 7 children, our children, have formed bonds that will last a lifetime. They have a group chat even more active than ours. They call each other for advice, for comfort, for random memes at midnight. Vincent wanted to keep us separated forever. Instead, he accidentally created a family bigger and stronger than anything he could have imagined. If you're watching this and you've been betrayed by a spouse, a family member, someone you trusted, I want you to know something. The betrayal is not your fault. I spent months blaming myself, asking what I missed, what I should have noticed, how I could have been so blind. But the truth is, I wasn't blind. I was trusting. And trust is not a weakness. The person who betrayed you is the one who failed, not you. Never you. You trusted because you loved. You believed because you hoped. You gave your heart because that's what love asks us to do. The other person took that gift and threw it away. That's their failure, not yours. And here's what I want you to know. You will survive this. I know it doesn't feel that way now. I know the pain feels infinite. The betrayal feels absolute. The future feels impossible. But you will survive. You will find your footing again. You will learn to trust again. Carefully, wisely, with your eyes open this time. And if you're lucky, if you're very lucky, you might even find something beautiful in the wreckage. Sisters, where you expected enemies. Family, where you expected destruction. Love, where you expected only pain. At my husband's funeral, 3 women discovered they had all married the same man. For 22 years, 15 years, 12 years, we had all loved Vincent Davis. We had all built lives with him. We had all believed we were his one and only. We weren't. But you know what? I'm not angry about that anymore. Because if Vincent hadn't died, if we hadn't discovered each other at that funeral, I would have lived the rest of my life in a lie. I would have gone to my grave believing I had a faithful husband, an honest marriage, a real partnership. Instead, I got the truth. Painful as it was, I got the truth. And I got something else too. I got 2 sisters I never knew I needed. I got an extended family I never knew existed. I got a second chance to build a life based on honesty, on real connection, on love that doesn't hide. Vincent Davis thought he could have everything. 3 wives, 3 families, 3 lives. He thought he could juggle us forever, keep us in the dark, maintain his empire of lies until the very end. But he underestimated us. He didn't count on us finding each other. He didn't count on us choosing sisterhood over rivalry. He didn't count on us taking his mess and turning it into something beautiful. He spent his whole life lying, but in death, he finally told the truth, and that truth set us free. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I share stories like this every week, true stories of women who turned pain into power. Drop a comment below. Have you ever discovered something shocking about someone you loved? How did you move forward? Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. And remember, the people who hurt you don't get to write your ending. You do. Sweet dreams.